Can women wear pants? Yes, you heard me. I can't even believe that I'm having this conversation. But then I must have this conversation because there are so many denominations, along with the Hebrew Israelites, that are convinced that they are right. They are going around misquoting scripture, not understanding what the scripture actually means, pulling it out of context, not even understanding historical context, basing their theology off of Deuteronomy 22:5, Exodus 28:42, trying to make a point, putting women in legalism for the sake of having control. If you actually do not know what they wore back then, how can you rightly divide the word of truth today? You must know the historical context. You just can't go around saying women can't wear pants. Did they even wear pants back then? Did men wear pants in Jesus' days? That's the question. And what is the Hebrew word for breeches? Is breeches the same as breeches like pants today? Or does breeches mean something else? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. So, grab your coffee. I have mine, because my hope is that this one here sets some women free. Coffee with Miss Miller, she starts right now.
Are women supposed to wear pants?
No.
And why not?
Because it's an abomination.
Where is the law that says that a woman is not supposed to wear pants?
Deuteronomy 22:5.
But the world has indoctrinated our sisters that you ain't beautiful. You got to wear pants. God designed pants for a man.
Can women wear pants according to the Bible? And will it stop you from receiving salvation? Let's talk about it. The Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5, the woman should not wear that which pertaineth unto a man. That is Western culture. That is not the culture of our people in ancient times. Now we go to the New Testament. The Apostle Paul made it very clear. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9 on down, that women should adorn themselves in modest apparel with shamefacedness. Hence, would it stop you from receiving salvation? Let's see. Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 8. And it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice. That's when Christ returns. That I will punish the princes and the king's children, that's you Israelites, especially you women, and all such as are clothed with strange apparel.
So let's get something out of the way up front so we don't have to revisit it. When Pastor Philip of 2819 Church, whom I respect, I truly respect,
This is a woman should not dress like a man. And you turn that into no woman can't wear pants. Let me ask you a question. When Moses wrote Deuteronomy, pants did not exist.
He's absolutely correct when it comes down to Moses' area and Jesus, because pants did not exist in their region. Not at all. They didn't even wear it. It was nowhere around. Now, if you went to Central Asia, those areas, then you may have seen some people running around with pants. But as for the Middle East area, Israel, the Mesopotamia, Egypt, where Moses would have been coming out of, they did not have pants. They did not exist. And that is historically correct. So I don't know why Moses would have leaned into women of today not wearing pants, considering he didn't even know what pants was. In the ancient Near East, Israel, Egypt, Mesopotamia, men and women wore tunics. Did you hear what I said? Men and women wore tunics. They looked almost identical, but it was just a couple of things different to where you can tell that whose tunic was for a man and whose tunic was for a woman. In the ancient Near East, Israel, Egypt, Mesopotamia, men and women wore tunics, robes, and cloaks. Priests wore linen breeches. Now, when you hear the word breeches, you think about old school, back in the day. Hey, boy, pull up your breeches. That's not the same. And that is the fallacy in some of this preaching. Y'all take English words and y'all put the same meaning of an English word to a Hebrew word. It's not the same. So in Exodus 28 and 42, you shall make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness. From the loins even unto the thighs they reach. Now, what are we talking about here? Breeches. They're not talking about pants. No. They're not talking about pants here. They're talking about undergarments. Breeches is not the same as breeches, trousers, or pants. That is not the Hebrew word. That is not what the Hebrew word means, rather. The Hebrew word means undergarment. The word for breeches in the Hebrew is michanasayim. Michanasayim. Now, I might be cutting that word up, but you get the point. And what that means is undergarment. That is the word for breeches. And that's why it was instructed to make undergarments to cover the private area. That's the nakedness. And it was to cover the loins all the way down to that part of the thigh. That sounds a lot like underwear to me. Boxers, something like that. You know what I'm saying? But it was not trousers. It was not pants as today. So when y'all use that scripture, you're using it in error. You need to go back to the original text. The original text of what breeches mean, michanasayim, and it means undergarments, not outer garments. So if you're using that scripture, you're not using it correctly. You're not rightly dividing the word of truth. Pants today are outer garments. They're not undergarments. And everybody wears underwear, we hope. Even in this, breeches was not made for everybody. It was just made for the priests because they were the ones that was going into the presence of God. And they were wearing underwear, undergarments. So by y'all theology, by y'all error in preaching, everybody wearing undergarments, it's a sin because it was only meant for the priests. That part. We know it's not a sin because we know that Jesus Christ has already came and the veil of the temple has already been rent into. We're not under the law because Jesus Christ has fulfilled the law. Okay? He has fulfilled the law and the prophets. All this here is legalism. But let's move on. Let's go dive a little bit deeper because they got other scriptures that they try to use. So we know that Moses didn't wear pants. Nobody wore pants. The priests didn't wear pants. They wore breeches, which were under garments. We already figured out what the Hebrew name for breeches is, michanasayim, and we know it meant undergarments. So let's move on. We understand that pants existed in more of the Central Asian region, but not in Israel, not in Mesopotamia, not in Egypt, where Moses would have been, where Jesus would have been, where the apostles would have been. You know what I'm saying? They did not exist. And when pants were created, they were created for people that were going to war riding horses, for riders, because it made sense to have on pants and not to have on a robe or a tunic. You couldn't ride. How could you ride with a robe or a tunic? That's why a lot of people ride side saddle when they had on stuff like that. And you can't be in war riding side saddle. So pants were in fact created. When Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell saying they didn't exist, but he was talking about they didn't exist at the time of Moses. They didn't. They were nowhere around. So he's absolutely correct. So let's go to 1 Timothy 2:9, which a lot of people like to use to keep women in legalism and bondage in regards to the apparel that they wear. The phrase modest apparel comes from 1 Timothy 2:9, written in Koine Greek. It describes the kind of clothing and demeanor that reflects humility, respect, and godliness. Now, when we talk about modest apparel, I want to make something plain. There are some times where sometimes women have on pants that, good God, everything is showing. Well, if you're a child of God, you don't want to be good God, everything is showing. You might want to loosen up them pants a little bit. There's nothing wrong with you wearing pants, but we don't want to look like, as we call in Louisiana, boudin skin or sausage skin, where everything is about to pop out. But likewise, with dresses, Because there's a lot of women that wear these tight dresses that, baby, everything, good God, everything is showing. And they too look like boudin skin. So when we talk about modest apparel, we're talking about humility and having respect for ourselves and respect for them that are around us. We don't want to be trying to provoke people to lust, okay? Because sometimes we can present ourselves in some type of lustful way, and all it do is activate, so to speak, the sins that are already in the hearts of them people over there that are lusting behind you. I don't want to try to blame you for them, because the Bible clearly states that we sin when we are carried away by our own lusts. Let's not try to be out there tempting people. Let us dress in modest apparel, even if it's pants. Now, if we break down 1 Timothy 2:9, katasto in the Greek, that is, katasto, long robe or garment, meaning a well-arranged, decent, and dignified garment, refers not just to clothing, but also to a calm and disciplined manner. That's what that scripture means. It has nothing to do with pants, unless you're looking like boudin skin. Not only are you dressed appropriately, but your demeanor is dignified. You represent God well. Deuteronomy 22:5, it addresses gender distinction and moral boundaries. Not fabric and style. The command forbids men and women from exchanging roles on appearances. Maybe they need to run down to the LGBTQ plus and preach to those people over there, especially the T in the LBGT. In ancient culture, clothing signaled one's role and gender identity within God's order. Modern pants, however, are gender specific in design. Calvin Klein makes jeans for women and makes jeans for men. Because they are made differently to fit a woman's body type, they do not violate the principle of gender distinction when worn modestly and appropriately, not boudin skin. Now, Zephaniah 1:8. And it shall come to pass in the last day of the Lord's sacrifice that I will punish the princes and the king's children and all such as clothed with strange apparel. That is the Hebrew word nochari. N-O-K-H-R-I. They are wearing foreign idolatrous clothing.